Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and in this video today we are going to be cutting this style you're seeing on top of my video. So this is a top and a skirt. The skirt is kind of small. You can make it longer if you want according to your preference, but we are going to be cutting exactly this style. So I have my Ankara here. This is 3 yards. I have my tape measure, scissors, and I already have my lining here. I already went ahead to put BFF on my lining because I'm going to be cutting my top from here, because we are going to be using freehand all the way, because it's not a style that is, that requires pattern drafting like that. So this is all I have. If this is the kind of video you want, please stick around and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and like. Thank you. Let's just move right into the video. So I already folded my Ankara here, and the hip I'm using for this skirt, I'm going to cut my skirt first, mind you. I'm going to be cutting the skirt first. So it's 43 divided by 4. This gives me 10.5. I need a chalk. So that's 10.75 rather. 43 divided by 4, 10.75. So I'm going to be adding 2-inch allowance all the way. Our the waist I'm using is 31 divided by 4. That's 7.75. So let's say 8 plus 2-inch allowance. So let's just move right ahead. So I'm just going to be folding my Ankara in 10.75 plus 2. Let's say 11 plus 2, that's 13. So I have 12 here, so I'm going to be folding it more so that I can have 13. So use your hip measurement to fold it. So I have 13 right here. So this is my starting line, also my waistline. So on my waistline, I'm going to go in by 30. We did 31 divided by 4. That's like, I'll make it 32. That's 8 plus 2. That's 10 inches. So this is 10 inches for my waist. So I'm going to come down by 8.5 inches. Oh, before I forget, I'll remove my 2 that I'm going to be using for the band. The 2 inches I'm going to be using for the band. So this is, unless your skirt is not going to have bands, so you can easily just measure from there. So I used 9 for my hip line because the person is kind of tall, so I used 9. And moving on, the length of my skirt is, what's the length though? 17. So I'm going to be adding extra 2 inches for sewing allowance, so that makes it 19. So this is 19. So on the hip line, I'm going to be measuring 13. That's my hip divided by 4 plus 2. So just connect it like so. And on this line, I'm not going to be shaping here because the skirt is not going to be having a slit. So the same thing I measured here, I'm going to measure here also. So I have 13 so that it will be free. So that's all we have. So before I cut it off, I'll just come in by ½ inch on this side, ½ inch on my center front rather. Just come in by ½ inch here, then connect it to the tip of the starting point here. So this is my waist, this is my hip, and this is my skirt length. So I came in by I came down by half an inch here and connected it to this my starting point so that it will give the waist a shape, so that it won't be folding like this when the person is wearing it. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this like so. This is our front pattern. We're going to use this front pattern also to cut the back. For the back, I'm going to extend it a little bit. On this side, I'll have zip allowance, so I have to make sure I have at least 2 inches on this side. So I'll come down a bit because I have what to do here also. So everything is set. So my front pattern, and this is my back. So from the hip line of the front, I'm going to go in by half. This method is what I use to avoid to do my butt shaping rather. So just come in by half here, half on the back, that is 1 inch. I'm going to be returning this 1 inch I marked here. I marked half here, half for the front, half for the back. I'm reducing it. So that gives me 1 inch. The 1 inch, I'm going to be returning it back at the center back, on the hip line of the center back. So with this, the butt has a way to sit down. It won't be folding and it is properly shaped. So from this side, I'm just going to connect it all the way back to the waist here, and from this side I'll connect it to the M line like so. If you know you can't use your arm, just make sure to have your curved rulers. So you just see I reshaped this. So after doing this, I'm going to come here on the hip line of the center back, and I'm going to go ahead and mark the 1 inch here. Just mark the 1 inch here like so. We are returning what we took from here to this side. And on the M line at the center back, I'm going to go down by 1. So with this, I'm just going to take it into the M line here. I'm just going to take it into it like this, like that. Why am I doing removing 1 inch? Why am I adding 1 inch to the M line? Because when the butt has packed, for a person that has a big bum bum, when it has packed it, so that the back will not be folding or the front will just be like this, you now have to, like pulling down. So with this, you don't have to pull down anything. So I've already extended the length, so there is enough space for the butt to sit down. So from this point, I'm going to draw it straight into the seam, into the waist like this, like so. Then also I'll come and connect it to this 1 inch here. Just follow what I'm doing, like so. So from this point, I'll just go ahead and mark my zipper allowance, which is 1.5 inch. 1.5. That was why I needed to like extend my. So I don't have enough here. I'll just use 1.25 for my zipper allowance, or 1 inch. Let me use 1 inch. 1 inch. 1 inch. You can use 2, you can use 1, 1.5, any one you want. So this is what I have. So you make sure it is following that shape. So this is my back, this is my front. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the back now. From this side, I'll go up by 1 and just take it straight into the center back like this. So I'm just going up by 1 and slanting it right here. I hope you can see it clearly. So this is the back and this is the front. Can you see it? The front is a princess dart. You can easily use a shoulder dart. You can use a princess dart. So I'm just going to use a princess dart. So I've gone ahead to fold my lining. I'm trying to use a plain fabric so it can be clear very well what I am drawing, what I'm marking, because it won't be very visible on that Ankara. So this page is folded, but it still needs to be opened. So the front has a zipper, so there's going to be a slit there. It's not going to be closed. So I'm just going to go ahead and mark to 2 inches. So I have a feeling that let me just fold this more so that because of that I'll have enough allowance. So I'll just go ahead and mark 2 inches. So my lining is not straight here, so I'm just going to like let me find my starting point so I won't be confused. So this is my starting line. Let me cut it off. Okay. So I'll just go ahead and mark 2 inches all the way down. The length I'm using for this blouse is 28 inches. Or I should just use 30. So with the allowance and everything, it will come back to 28. So I'll make it 30. Okay, this is 30. So I'm marking 30 all the way. You can make it longer, you can make it shorter. So this is going to be used for the zipper at the front. So every measurement I'm going to be marking next is going to be starting from this point. They're going to be starting from this point, not this point again. They're going to be starting from this point. And I mark the chest point. The bust I'm using is 38. So 38 divided by 4, that's 9.5. That's how I mark mine. So that's my chest line. 11 for the bust points. Under bust 14. Half length 17. And my blouse length. So this is the chest line, the bust points, the under bust, the waistline, and the blouse length. So from this point, I'll mark my shoulder, which is 7.5. I'll mark it to my chest line so I can get a straight line. So I'll connect this together. So after marking your shoulder line, make sure that note that every measurement I'm marking is coming from my zip allowance here. I'm not measuring from here, I'm measuring from this point. So I'll just go ahead and mark my neck width, which is 3 by 4. I'm using 3 by 4. So I'm just going to connect this together. I'm going to come down by 1.5 inch. So just go ahead and mark your neck points, your shoulder slants. So after marking that, I'll go ahead and extend my line like so. Then I'll go ahead and measure my nipple to nipple measurement. So the nipple to nipple measurement I'm using for this particular tutorial is 9 is 9. 9 divided by 2, that is 4.5. So because I'm using a free hand, I'm going to be adding half inch. If I'm cutting on the pattern, I will have added it when I'm cutting on the fabric. But since I'm cutting on the fabric directly, I'll add my half inch right here. So instead of using 4.5, I'm going to be using 5 inches. But here is the trick. On my bust point, I'm going to be marking 5 inches. On my bust point, I'll measure 4.5 because we are making use of a princess that. And on my waistline, I'll measure 4 inches. And also on my hem line, I'll measure, 4.5 rather, sorry, 4.5. So the only place I measured 5 inches is on my bust point. After marking this point, I'll go ahead and look for the midpoint of my armhole. So I have 8 here. So this is 4. 8 divided by 2, that's 4. So with this, I'm going to connect and make a straight line. Going to be connecting it. So from this point, I'll connect it to this half point. So on my under bust, I'll measure 2.5. On my waistline, measure 2.5 from this line, and on my blouse length, I'll measure 1.5. So after doing that, I'll connect this line together and make my line here. Then connect it to your bust point like so. After connecting your breast cut like this, your cuff like so, I will now go to my armhole that's here. I'll come down by 2 inches. So from these 2 inches, I'll connect it to my bust point here. I'll extend the line to meet up with the half of my armhole. Then after doing this, then I will now reconnect my armhole like so. Just follow what I'm doing. So just extend the line to this point, then reconnect your armhole like so. Reconnecting, I'll go ahead now and mark my body measurement. So the bust I'm using is 38, that is 9.5. So make sure you are replacing back all these dots into the measurement. So this is 9.5. What I have here is 0.5. I'm returning it back. Then I'm going to be adding extra 2 inches for the sewing allowance. So on the waist is 32, which is 8. I hope I measured from here. Yes, don't forget you are measuring from this line. So the waist is 32, which is 8. So the difference I have here is 2.5, an extra 2 inches for sewing allowance. So on the length, the hips is 43. Let's say 44, that's 11. Hey, I'm measuring from here. 11. So here I have 1.5, extra 2 inches. So this is what we have. It's 2.52. Make sure your body measurement is correct, and don't forget to remove the dart. Don't forget to include the dart and add it back. If you look at the style very well, the zipper stopped somewhere below the waist. So from the waist here, I will come down by 1 inch. So this is where the zipper stops. So I'm going to be cutting away the rest because it is open from the waist down to the M line. It is open to the length. So just come down on your waistline by one, or according to your preference. But according to the style, it was just below the waist. So I just came down by one here. So I'm going to be cutting off from this point. So you can now go ahead and cut this. But before I do that, on the M line here, I will go up by 1.5 so that our lines will not just be too pointy. Then I will just make a curve here like so. So I'll cut off now. This is what we have. So I'm going to be using this also to cut the back. So cutting the back is going to be so easy. So I'm just going to close up the that and use it to cut the back. So I've already placed my back on it. I'll be using the same style line for the front and the back. So the only difference I'm just going to be doing here is just reducing the back, because the back is folded. There's no zip. The zip is already at the front. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut this out. So here's my back. It's folded. It's not open. That's why I folded the zip in. So this is my back. Then I'll go ahead and cut my front, um my side front rather. I said my front, my side front. So I'm just going to be placing this on this like so, and cover up this side because there is no bust at the back. So I'm just going to be doing it like so. I'm going to be pinning this down. So this is my back. So here is my back, side front. Here is the center front. So this is the back, and this is the front with the part. So I'm just going to be placing this on the Ankara and be cutting this off camera. So I'll come back when I'm done cutting. Then I need to fold my sleeve. I'm cutting both together. So my sleeve is like an A shape. It fitted right from the upper part, but when it got to the wrist like this, it has a A shape. So the length I'm going to be using is 24. So for my top arm, for the length of my top arm, I'm going to be using 4.5. So just measure 4.5 down like this. Then from this corner here, is unfold. Just mark a slant line. Just go by a slant line. This is how I use freehand to cut my sleeve. Just go slant line like so. Just slant it like so. So once you slant it, look for the midpoint here. So I'm just going to be cutting up to here. So I have 10.5. No, okay, let me just make it of 10. So the fold here is 10. I came down by 4.5. Then I marked the slanted line like this. So look for the midpoint here. I have 10.5 here. So this is the midpoint. Just do it like so. So on the midpoint here, look for the midpoint. After looking for the midpoint from here to here, look for the midpoint here. On the midpoint here, upper part, mark half inch. This is the midpoint. So go up by half inch like so. Repeat the same here, the midpoint here. This is the midpoint here. So you will go down by half an inch. So from this point you are going half an inch upward. This point you are coming down half an inch. So you're going to be connecting this line together. Mind you, it's not going to straight, it's going to be a curved line. So that's how you make your freehand sleeve. So you can just do it easily do it like this. But this gives you a better shape. So after doing your curve like so, I'll go ahead and measure my sleeve length. So the short sleeve is 9 inches. So the 3/4 is 15.5 and the length I'm using is 14. So for the sleeve, I'll be using 6.5. Let me use 6 plus 1.5 sewing allowance. That's 7.5. I'll use 5.5 plus 1.5, that's 7. So that it will give me a nice shape. And from this point here, I'll just make use of all of what I have here. Everything I have here is 10.25. So I'll just extend it like an A shape like that. So I'll just extend it like this. Just extend what you have from the, so from this point, come up by 1 inch so that that place will not be too pointy, and connect it like that. So connect these lines together. Connect the lines together. So from this point, I'm just going to be cutting off. So this is my sleeve. And not everything out on the Ankara like so. So we're just going to go ahead and sew.
So here is what the backs look like.
So I'm done turning the front. So this is what I have. So I went ahead to turn here. So you just sew it on this second line of the zip here. So I went ahead to turn it like so. turn it like this, turn the down part, turn here, and I'll remove it from the armhole. So let's see what we have. You're going to give this a very, very nice press because it has to be very, very flat. So this is what we have for the front and this side. So I need to press this very well. So this place can be open also. So I need to give all these places a good press. So this is what we have. This is what we have right here. This is what we have. This is what we have. So let me go over to press it then. I would join both together and shape and fix the sleeve. Then I'll come back and show you what we have.
Here is what we have. Make sure to try this out and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Thank you so much for sticking around with me. God bless you, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.